Well, it is the final day of the Republican National Convention. The day has come for Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney to tell America why he should be the next commander-in-chief. Leading up to today, a series of speeches and events that have showcased division and controversy within the Republican Party. One of the clearest examples, tension between Ron Paul's supporters and the establishment Republicans. To talk more about this, RT White House correspondent Christine Frizzau joins us now live from the Republican National Convention in Tampa. Hi, Christine.
Well, hey there, Liz. Yeah, really an interesting dynamic going on. Yesterday, we saw those Ron Paul supporters, the delegates from Maine, once again walk out of the convention hall in unison, taking up a whole lot of room, I should mention. They waited for the Ron Paul tribute video to play. They waited for Rand Paul's speech, and then they were gone. They seemed to really be angry at the way everything has really gone down here without even letting them have their voices heard.
Christine, Ron Paul, he declined a slot to speak at the Republican National Convention, but as you mentioned, they did play this courtesy tribute video to him at the event. Here's a look at it.
For those with dedication, character, faith, and conviction. Sometimes that lonely path paves the way forward for millions. Ron Paul.
All right, Christine, how are Ron Paul supporters reacting to that video?
Frankly, some mixed reactions, Liz. We've heard responses range from inspiring to offensive. A whole lot of people that are here in support of Ron Paul, both, convention goers as well as delegates, of course, happy that they had a video at all. But let me put this in a little perspective. You said Ron Paul declined a speaking spot. Ron Paul declined a speaking spot because A, he would have had to fully endorse Mitt Romney, which he says he doesn't. B, he would have had to have his speech heavily vetted both by the RNC and the Romney campaign. So those are the conditions under which he denied a speaking slot here. Back to this video, Liz, less than 4 minutes. It talked about the fact that Ron Paul has never voted for a tax increase, that Ron Paul has never voted to expand the debt ceiling. The story, though, Liz, really in what wasn't said in this video. Ron Paul has asked for an audit of the Federal Reserve, and in fact, the Republican Platform Committee has adopted that as part of this year's platform. So he was happy about that. No mention whatsoever of his position on the military. He has also called for an audit of the Pentagon. When Ron Paul says he wants smaller government and much less government spending, he means it across the board, not just from these so-called entitlement programs. He wants it from the place where the majority of the money actually is spent, and that is the military. So a lot of people who support Ron Paul, by the way, as we've reported time and time again, a lot of support from military veterans. Military veterans in poll after poll have been shown to support Ron Paul above any other candidate who was present in this primary race leading up to the convention here. This is an important issue, and to have it not mentioned whatsoever was pretty offensive and, frankly, and I'll use their words, repulsive to some of these supporters who I spoke to. Another side note, Liz, it's really interesting, as you know, as our viewers know, we have covered Ron Paul consistently for the last 4 years. So it has been interesting being here as a member of RT America, people coming up to me, recognizing me, telling me, we watch RT because of your coverage, and it's been really interesting. I think a whole lot of the other networks, a whole lot of the other mainstream media and the establishment political parties here in this country very surprised to see what has happened with these Ron Paul delegates and what has happened overall with this inability to come out of this convention with the support and unity behind Mitt Romney that a lot of people here expected.
And Christine, there is this hope within the libertarian movement that Rand Paul will carry the torch of his father, Ron Paul. But based on last night's speech, Rand Paul's speech at the RNC, does it appear that he's doing that?
Well, Liz, that was really interesting. As I mentioned, a lot of the delegates in support of Ron Paul, a lot of people here expected a dynamite speech, expected a speech that would sort of set the stage for a Ron Paul run in 2016. over the weekend at the rally, he gave a very different speech in support of his father. In last night's speech, he didn't even mention his father by name. He simply talked about his immigrant grandfather who came to this country and had a son who has, became a Texas congressman and ran for president. That line met with a whole lot of applause from the audience here, but really, really toned down. And that's something I want to focus on. I mean, Rand Paul talked about Obamacare, how he thinks it's unconstitutional. He talked about immigrant families that he knows, a Cambodian family who owns a donut shop in his neighborhood in Kentucky who went on to have children who are valedictorians. Really focusing on the Republican message, which, I will say seems to poll very well among conservatives, which is the "we built that" line said by President Obama when he was referring to the fact that, it takes a village. It takes school teachers. It takes people who help you along the way to have a successful business. It takes safe roads and bridges for you to be able to transport whatever it is that you're selling. That line by the president, of course, used time and time again everywhere around this convention center and all around the forum where the convention's being held are signs that say, "Yes, Mr. President, we did build that," or "we built it." This is a line that Rand Paul focused heavily on in his speech last night. I do want to mention he did sort of touch upon his father's message and his message of far less military spending. Take a listen.
Republicans and Democrats alike, though, must slay their sacred cows. Republicans must acknowledge that not every dollar spent on the military is necessary or well spent.
So really very little said by Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, about the oversized military. He said, the United States needs to be careful not to trade their liberties for a, false promise of security. But really, that was it. So from the perspective of Ron Paul supporters, and that's really who we've been talking to quite a bit over the last few days, from their perspective, a disappointing speech by Senator Rand Paul because they really wanted to hear more of these messages that have really drawn them to his father, Congressman Ron Paul from Texas. I've seen a lot of discussions on the internet today, over Twitter, over email, people just talking about how disappointed they are, calling Rand even just another member of the GOP establishment.
And I mean, it seems like that's what happened, that he kind of stuck to talking points that are more palatable for the establishment GOP. Is that kind of feeding these fears within the libertarian movement that Rand Paul, who they hope will carry the torch, is going to be more of a turn out to be a sellout?
Well, you can say a sellout, or you can say somebody who wants to get in by playing by the rules. The common expression, you can't govern if you don't win. Well, perhaps that's what Senator Rand Paul is trying to do. He's trying to carry the Ron Paul revolution messages and do so in a place where he can actually implement them, as opposed to, this side movement, which, as we've seen over the years, has grown, has become very popular, has become very large. But, when you break down the numbers, Ron Paul, couldn't get past this primary process to get enough delegate numbers in order to become the nominee. So perhaps, and we don't know. We don't know. I got to mention this, Liz. We don't know what Rand Paul's speech looked like when he submitted it to the Republican National Committee for vetting. We don't know if it said a whole lot more about the military-industrial complex, about auditing the Pentagon. We don't know what he wanted to say first, but it seems to me, Liz, and this is just from my observation, that this is a guy who's trying to play to both parties, to play to the support of his father, and also to actually be in office long enough to do something.
All right, Christine, thanks so much for staying on top of everything over there in Tampa. That was RT White House correspondent Christine Frizzell.